Well, it's always good to be introduced by a soldier. He didn't tell you he's a retired lieutenant colonel from the Army with over 20 years service. So thank you. Thanks for that warm introduction. Well, moving back to Baton Rouge, one thing I was told when I left Atlanta is make sure you check in with the Rotary. Check out Atlanta Rotary and checked in with Baton Rouge Rotary. And I don't apologize, but I don't make as many meetings as I should. But when I do come, I try to live by the four-way test. And we work hard to make sure this report we present to you today meet the four-way test. And you might say, well, why would a retired general want to talk about water? Water is our lifeblood. And the data we'll present to you today will be online. It'll be on our Facebook page, the Green Army Facebook page. The mission of the Green Army is to find solutions for pollution. We live in a place that creates many of the petrochemicals that is used around the world. And much of what you sit on or see is painted with a DNA from one of the 150 chemical plants between Baton Rouge and New Orleans, or in western Louisiana and Calcasieu, Campbell Parish. The topic today is water, drinking water. Next slide, please. The emphasis on what guides us with our drinking water are two acts, the Clean Water Act and the Safe Drinking Water Act. As was demonstrated, the federal government created these two acts because we were having problems with our water. And I'll show you some data on that in a few minutes. But we will adapt and overcome. Visualize, there's a slide up there that tells you 70% of the world's Earth's surface is covered by water. But in essence, less than 1% of it is drinkable. Our water comes from aquifers, rivers, lakes, desalination, and yes, wastewater recycling. That's the source of our water. The challenge with water as we go into the future is a global rise in population. As we go from 7 to 10 billion people by 2050 on this earth, we're going to need 33% more water. But the reality is we're going to have less drinking water and more population. We have to change. And we got a beautiful slide that shows that. And we're on track. I've told you about this one already. 1%, remember that, 70% of the earth. And much of the water that's available, we flush our toilets and then end up in it. I hope all of you are done eating. That's not a good description, but it's a fact. And go back to that slide there. This is very revealing, this data. Next slide, please. When you see the global population going up and the available water, we have to make up that difference. I think a part of the new economy can be about water, about drinking water, and finding technologies that help us reuse water. And not just look around your table. And maybe at the end of this, I'm going to tell you we need to do a cultural shift. How many glasses of water that's sitting on the table will not be drunk today? We need a cultural shift. We need to put the water out there. If you want it, you pick it up, you bring it in. Have it self-service, because it's just by culture, our culture of abundance. There are people around the world, 700 million, that don't have clean drinking water. And we leave it sitting on the table on a daily basis. So as the population go up, we're going to have less water. We've got to change. And that's the reason we're talking about water today. The Rotary, when I first joined, my first mission was to help build well waters in Haiti. And we went around the state to various Rotary clubs raising money to put well waters in Haiti, because children were spending 2 to 3 hours after school in the afternoon to go get water, to bring clean water back into the home. And we went down there with this Rotary Club in support of the greater Rotary mission, and we put wells in Haiti. Water is a problem globally. Next slide. 75% of our water in the United States is used on what? Lawns. It's more than what we use to raise corn and any of our farm products. We need a cultural shift, folks. You say, well, Honore, I say, you got a sprinkler system. I cut it off on the grass. I only use it on my shrubs. You know, we got into the business of, in the big subdivisions, everybody put a sprinkler system in. And that is what's causing the majority of our water, the available drinking water to be used, is on lawns. Bigger than agriculture, believe it or not. And this is research 3 to 4 times documented. This is a fact. We have to have a shift in how we're living if we're going to meet the needs and the demand of the 2050 population. Yeah, I probably want to be here. Well, I'm hoping, but my chances are not to make it there. But those that we leave behind will have to deal with this. And some of you younger ones will see this in act. How do we, what we can do? We need to enforce the Clean Water Act. Before the Clean Water Act, the river in Cleveland, Ohio, the Congo River, caught fire. Lyndon Johnson said at the time, if you dropped yourself in the Potomac, you would have to go to a rescue hospital to get treatment. That's how polluted the water was. Because people ignored. There is an old saying that solution to pollution is dilution. That was a lie. And it was a lie then, and it's a lie now. So the Clean Water Act was born. Our challenge is, since the Clean Water Act was instituted, it's been constantly degraded by the Supreme Court and the Congress and the Senate of the United States, the enforcement of it. That's the problem. And the Clean Drinking Water Act, which was produced around the same time because much of the issues related with health were related to water. When we had the cholera outbreak in Haiti, they were taking water out of the streams downstream from a UN battalion that came in that had cholera. Over 10,000 Haitians died from cholera they got from drinking water out of the streams that was downstream from that UN Army camp related to water. So it's an issue globally, and it's an issue right here in Baton Rouge. Now, we have some great water. We toast our water. People come here and they're amazed at our water. It's a prized possession, our water. But it's not the case throughout the state of Louisiana. And it's been reaffirmed by the Supreme Court. Also in Louisiana, we have a law that requires our DEQ to enforce the Clean Water Act. Now, somehow in Louisiana, through the wisdom of the Louisiana legislature, when these two acts were put in enforcement, at the national level, water is monitored by the EPA. But we've got to always have a different way here in Louisiana. We let the Bouton Roulet or something. We put drinking water under the Department of Health. And until 4 years ago, we had an OBGYN doctor in charge of water. Hello. But we put the Clean Water Act under DEQ. We need to fix that. And we'll go to the legislature and make that recommendation to them. But we need to change that. We need to be aligned with the federal government and have both Clean Water Act and Clean Drinking Water Act under the DEQ. Because that's who's given that mission in Title IX of our Constitution, the DEQ, to monitor our natural resources and our water. Next slide. And I think I might be one behind. Go ahead, next. How's water funded? Well, if you got your water bill, you know you pay for it. It's a community activity. But as we look at what we are paying for water, in many cases, it does not sustain the water system. We're lucky in Baton Rouge in a way. We've got the Baton Rouge Water Company. They do a pretty good job, right? We do have issues, but they do a good job. And they keep our water clean, it tastes good, it doesn't smell, and it's not colored. That's not the case throughout the state of Louisiana. We still have people drinking brown water in Louisiana. So it goes through billing and loans, low interest loans. The challenge we have in Louisiana with our water system, of the 1,250 we have, 400 of them are at risk. Small towns can't sustain their water systems. And you'll see later one of the recommendations we make is consolidation at the parish level of the water systems. Now, I sat down with 5 black mayors up in the Mississippi, in Louisiana Delta, in the Black Belt. You know what they tell me? Gerald, leave our water system alone. Because in our town, our water is our only source of cash. Because when they built the dollar store, they built it right outside the city limits. And when that dollar store got built, they closed the small stores inside the town. So you fix one thing and you break another. And in this case, water is used as a cash cow. What I pay at my house, $40 for water, in Atlanta would have cost me $150 because they use water as a cash cow. They up the price of water to keep the prices of taxes down. They do the same thing in Baltimore. My house in Baltimore pay $175 for water. And in Baton Rouge, I pay about $40 for water. What people get confused with their water bill is sometimes with your water bill, it includes your sewer bill and your garbage bill. So you ask somebody, what do you pay for water? Oh, yeah, I pay $120 for water. No, you didn't. You probably paid about $40. The rest of that is what? Garbage and sewer. And people get confused with that. I had a big argument with a lady in Jackson, Mississippi over that. And speaking of that, next slide. I spent a better part of last year consulting with the mayor of Jackson to try to help them get funding to resolve the water issues in Jackson. How did they deteriorate? Absence of funding. The president declared an emergency. The governor declared an emergency. We had FEMA and the EPA come to town. We were eventually able to get the water back on track, but it was underfunding, under maintenance, not maintaining the infrastructure. I just had a discussion out at Southern University a couple of weeks ago. They had a water break. The pipes are 70 years old. There's nothing on the books to replace those pipes. Nothing. And that is true throughout the state. And we think it'll take about $2 billion to fix the water problem in Jackson. They got $600,000. So again, if they're putting a Band-Aid on, they hadn't fixed it. And the people in Jackson are still questioning their water. There's questioning of water testing. Some of you saw the story not long ago in the New Orleans area where the water testers were not actually testing the water. They were punching in at the Starbucks. But technology caught up with them because they went to look online where their cars were parked, simultaneously doing a water test 3 blocks over. We've got to build the people confidence that the water is safe. Next slide. We deal with 3 major aquifers in Louisiana. The Sparta Aquifer up north, which is pretty well managed. I went to their meetings. They do a check and balance. If a new company come in, want to use some more water, then somebody has to reduce. They manage it pretty well. Then we have the Capital Area Groundwater Commission that covers the Southern Hill aquifers, which covers Baton Rouge and the Florida parish to include Point Capit, my home parish. And but right now there's a thing on the governor's docket on his agenda to get rid of the Capital Area Groundwater Commission. I encourage you to call the governor and say, we need to keep the commission. There are a lot of things going on. We're trying to manage our aquifer, and I'll get into a few more details. The other impact on our drinking water is fracking. Now, fracking has had a significant impact on our economy, but it's also had a significant impact on our shallow aquifers. Because when you frack, you pollute water, and then you have to put the polluted water back into the ground, and it destroyed the water in Lincoln Parish by injecting fracking water, and now that's going to court to resolve that issue because it destroyed the shallow aquifer in Lincoln Parish. I watched that story, commented on it at the time. The parish said no, but under the state of Louisiana, our state agencies can declare that permit to put that injection water into that parish. They did it by the act of a state agency, overriding the act of the parish. That's why they're going to court. Study Southern Air Aquifer, next one. This is where we get our water. I must say we've been challenged over the years. We've been through a lot of discussions. We did get some changes on the Capillary Groundwater Commission, focused more on citizens as opposed to industry. A lot of changes have been made. There's an initiative to put meters on all the wells, and there's things happening in the legal system to resolve that between the demands of the Capillary Groundwater Commission and the Baton Rouge Water Company. Our issue is, how do we extend the life of our aquifer? We think we can extend the life of the aquifer by trying to get industry to use river water. And right now, our biggest consumer is Exxon. Now, Exxon's position for a while has been, hey, we're people too. We got a right to that water. But the reality is, all the plants south of here, between Baton Rouge and on the other side of the river in New Orleans, use river water. So it's not like we ask them to do something that other companies are not doing that they compete with. They use river water. We think it would extend the life of our aquifer if we could encourage Exxon to use river water. And that's what we need to do. And there's regulatory issues associated with that. There's social networking happening, and hopefully we'll get something out of the legislature. But we went through 2 governors already, and neither one of them would take that on as a major issue. That bear is just too big to wrestle. So we got to encourage them. And he's retired. To use river water. Y'all agree with me on that? They're good friends. A lot of people work there. I use their gas, but we need to get them on river water. The bottom line. That's the 4-way test on that topic. Next slide. Agriculture uses a significant amount of water. The impact on agriculture is 33 states dump their water in the Mississippi River. That drainage includes a lot of phosphorus and nutrients that end up in the Mississippi River water that flows through, and everybody south of here between Baton Rouge and New Orleans have to pull it out and drink it. That needs to change, and that needs to come from the federal government and state enforcement of the Clean Water Act. Right now, the EPA has sent the state a notice that from their assessment, the state is not testing the discharge from the plants sufficiently that's going into the Mississippi River water. Because downstream from here, all these communities rely on the Mississippi River water for water. And now there's plastics and stuff we call PFAS, the invisible chemicals, and even plastic residue in that water. We've got to fix that. And the water that flows out to the Gulf has created the dead zone off the coast of Louisiana, which has a significant impact on our biodiversity. Next slide. And this explains a little more about the drinking water in Louisiana as it relates to the Mississippi River. That's our lifeblood. It's key to our economy, it's key to our culture, and it's key to the survival of South Louisiana, because when I grew up and when many of you grew up, there were wells in backyards. Over time, that water, those shallow aquifers were depleted. And the salt water that comes up from the Gulf basically moves subterranean. And if you can visualize College Drive, if you drive through the golf course, There's a little ridge there. That's where that water is tipping over into the southern hill aquifer, because the pressure from south of here is coming into the aquifer, and it's putting salt into the southern hill aquifer, because the southern hill aquifer is losing pressure because of the amount we're consuming. We're not the only state that's having that problem. In the Midwest, 50% of the aquifers are below 50% of their life expectancy, because they keep drawing water to raise alfalfa and you name it. And much of that is going overseas. So that saltwater intrusion, while we heard a lot about it in New Orleans with the river, it's happening right here to our aquifer, saltwater intrusion. And the way to do that is to use less water, or all them extra glasses. Stop watering your lawn. We all can be a part of that. We can take citizen action. But we also need to have our legislators do what? Do their job. And put the regulations in that help control the amount of water that's being wasted. Next slide. Other threats to the drinking water. As I said, much of the water systems in Louisiana are at risk. Much of it is at risk for poor infrastructure and maintenance. A lot of it is at risk because of pollution. I invite you to go to the LDEQ website and look at the number of water bodies in Louisiana where there's caution not to fish. You can no longer fish there because the water is polluted. We're not nearly doing enough to protect our water or to clean up the water that is polluted. You go around our beautiful state capitol and governor's mansion, those lakes there are polluted. They were polluted by Westinghouse, and we let them get out of town. That company is still active. And the governor Edwards, thank God, he was able to get the EPA to take that mission on to clean those lakes, because right now they're polluted. But you still go there and see people fishing. We were able to get the signs back up to tell people not to eat the fish out of those two lakes. That's in the shadows of our capital. We've been working on this for 12 years. And Governor Foster started working on it before he left office. He assigned a commission to do it. They met one time. Never met again. So we got issues with cleaning up our water. Saltwater intrusion. Next slide. We all remember seeing what happened to my favorite city in America. No hint, Baton Rouge, New Orleans. When they went through the saltwater intrusion that occurred last year because of the drought. It happened because of the drought, and over the years, through political decisions, we had the Corps of Engineers dredge out the Mississippi River to take in bigger container ships. And the combination of low water from up north because of the drought and the dredging of the river to bring larger ships in, we get saltwater intrusion. We need a long-term fix for New Orleans. That's our moneymaker. Those surrounding parishes generate over 25% of the state's income. The surrounding parishes around New Orleans. We've got to fix that water system. Right now, the water system in New Orleans is on a Band-Aid fix. 50% of the water they clean is lost in old pipes. So imagine cleaning the water, getting it ready to go to the public. It goes through the pipes, and 50% of it is lost. That's ridiculous. That has to be fixed. That is not sustainable. It doesn't meet the four-way test. We've got to fix that. If we don't get our water straight, we're not going to keep the saints. We're not going to keep the Pels. We'll stop seeing in May and April, as I saw many times flying from Atlanta, young people with their wedding dress on coming to get married in New Orleans. People are going to stop coming. We've got to fix that water system in New Orleans. It's key to our future sustainment of our economy. Next slide. What are some of the solutions? We need to look at how we build water. Right now, is there a program we could come up with and look at the state and federal level of how we build water? Right now, I can tell you we got a major problem ongoing with gas price, what people in poor communities in rural areas are paying for gas. I tell you, I'm talking to people in Alexandria, their gas bill last month went from $3.50 to $6.50 over the Skoll snap. I'm talking to people in South Beauregard Parish whose gas bill was $70, this month's $150. And it's attributed to a plant out of Punkapi Parish that sells the electricity over there, and they said the price went up because when the river was low, we couldn't get as much coal in, and it cost us more to get coal. But yet we are shipping natural gas out of Louisiana in the LNG to other states. What the hell was wrong with that? That's going to be our next study, the price of gas in Louisiana. Will be our next Green Army study that I'll come share with you if we can get a date. Next slide. Reduce the amount of fertilizer. Tulane had a grant given to it by the Taylor organization some years ago to find ways to reduce the amount of fertilizer that's ending up in the Mississippi River, thus ending up off the coast. That program was funded for a few years. I went to one of the conferences and they found some innovative ways to reduce the amount of fertilizer, some of it through technology. And right now the farmers that participate using satellite imagery and technology, it will tell them what parts of the field they don't need to fertilize. If you're raising corn or soybeans, and to reduce the amount of runoff. But we got a lot of work to do there, because that's still the main source. As I told you earlier, the EPA has told DEQ, you are not testing the TDML, total maximum daily load of what's coming out of these plants. When John Bell Edwards took over government, he had to hire over 20 water testers because the previous governor fired them all because he reduced the size of LDEQ by 50%. And didn't have the people to test the water. Governor Edwards put them back in. I hope we still have them because they need to go test these plants because it's not just the permit you give to plant A. Right next door is plant B. It's a cumulative effect of what happens to that water by the time it gets to New Orleans, where we all go and love to play and visit and come back home. So we've got to do a better job of protecting our water. And we've got to do a better job resourcing the Surgeon Water Board activities in the city of New Orleans. When I was there during the storm, and we're trying to pump the water out of the building, the pumps that the city was using at Katrina were built in the 1930s. And we provided special transportation to bring the workers back because there was no way to find parts to fix something built in the 1930s. It's ridiculous. We've got to do a better job investing in our infrastructure. And we're going to have to pay for this, folks. We got people paying more for cable than they do for water and for sewage and for drainage. That's got to be fixed. We got to have a balance. We got to fix that. And that is a way to fix it. And the way to fix it is to come to you, citizens, and have you engaged from the business perspective at your local government and at the state government. Let's do something about it. As the state does have a legislative committee about water, the problem is they don't move the ball. The lobbyists come in, they go to the city club, and the game's over. We got to do better than that. Because again, it's not about most of us, it's about who? Our kids that's going to continue to live here. I was talking to a mayor out in Mamou, and she said, Gerald, we got a nice farm. That boy went off to LSU. He married a little girl. They come here. We want them to have this farm and this ranch. We put all this money. They don't want to stay here, General, because the water is a little brown. Can you believe that? I said, yep. A city girl not coming out here and drinking brown water. It's not good for our economy. It's not good for our state. Yet 400 of our water systems are at risk. What we got to do? Next slide. We need a cultural shift. Again, I've covered this. We've got to protect our water and streams. Next slide. And that should be, this is the last one. We need a cultural shift. We need to make sure we're doing our part. Stop filling all the glasses. stop watering the lawn on a regular schedule. Use technology. I had my sprinkler guy come in. He put a little thing on the side of my house. So if it rains that week, it tells my sprinkler don't come on. And then I went in and I Punkapeed Punkapeed is where I come from. I jacked up my sprinkler system and turned off everything that watered grass. And just left it on to water the shrubs and the flowers next to the house. That's it. Don't water the grass. We all can do our part, is what I'm saying. But we need our government to do their part. And we got to get serious about water in Louisiana, and particularly about this aquifer. The other two aquifers at risk are the Chico aquifer, because they're about to put a interstate through Lafayette, and if they put it where they're talking, it's going to go through a old rail yard that the subterranean there is full of chemicals, and when they put the pilings in, we know it's going to hit the Chico aquifer. The other one is the I-10 bridge. What the government is not telling you, the reason we don't have the I-10 bridge in Lake Charles is because they're afraid whoever take that on is going to hit the Chico aquifer, because that water in that I-10 bridge deteriorates concrete. That's how polluted it is. Hello? And that's going to be a challenge. How do you put a bridge there when we know when we put the pilings in, it's going to leach water into the aquifer? We need a cultural shift. We need to get serious about it. We need to talk about it, and we need to stay informed. The briefing will be shared. Ms. Sherry will have it on the website, or you can pick it up at our Green Army Facebook page. But thank you for listening. Do we have a few minutes for questions? 2 minutes. I apologize for going so long. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
General Honore, I'm Boo Thomas. You and I worked very closely after Katrina and Rita.
Yes, ma'am.
This is not related to water, but it is related to the threat of water. After Katrina and Rita, one of the biggest, I think, initiatives that we accomplished was to take the coastal issues out of DEQ and DOTD. And I've noticed that the governor is wanting to get rid of CPRA, I believe, and put it all back into the DOTD and DEQ, which is a threat, again, to our land and our people. So I would invite my Rotarians to get involved in that and let the governor know, but what is your thoughts about that?
Well, I think, the governor came out and got a little front of the skis on that one, as you might say in the Army. And he made that announcement, and he got a lot of phone calls. Yeah, to include Gary Graves, who analysis was putting CPRE in natural resources is like going back to treat people with medical issues by using leeches. That's Gary Graves. That's my buddy. I'm just quoting him. I do think the governor has now declared he's going to have hearings. So the ball is being kicked down the road a little bit, as it should be, because I don't think that's a wise move. That we already got many issues with our regulatory issues, agencies looking after abandoned wells, pipelines that are exposed, and all the other things they need to do. I don't think that's a wise idea. And the motivation is to make it easier for oil and gas to do business in Louisiana. They've had their way. They've used us like a wet paper towel and as a dump. So I don't know how making it easier. The idea that we're going to do more drilling in Louisiana is stupid, because the lift price of oil on the land is a lot higher than off the coast. So it's a figment of people's imagination to think we're going to do more oil drilling in Louisiana because the lift price is just too high. All the easy oil has been taken already. And all we end up now with is fracking, which was concentrated in the north part of the state. And we saw what that did to the water systems up there. And now the LNG movement and the carbon sequestration movement. And we worry about carbon sequestration because when they put carbon underground in Lake Maurepas, they're going to go through the aquifer. And it hadn't been done before, but they say trust us. Now, I know the governor, John Bell, was all for it, even the White House is all giddy about carbon capture. But none of them is putting it next to their damn house or through their aquifer. But they get a free play at us in Louisiana. And there's a hearing in the legislature coming up next few days. Representative Kim Coates is holding some hearings on carbon capture. But I'm not sure it's ready for prime time. But they're getting a free run of us in Louisiana to put it on the ground. And when they put the carbon capture, they get tax credit for doing it. So industry is motivated to do it. We need a solution, but I'm not sure that's the one. Yeah, one more question over here. Okay. Yes, sir.
First off, thank you again for addressing our club. Very much appreciate your dedication and service to our country, our state, our communities. Great American, thank you. We're glad to have your leadership continually. Yep. If you think in terms of what we saw in Flint, Michigan, with the degradation of the pipes and lead in the pipes and drinking water, is there concern in Louisiana, some of our small communities that might be close to facing some similar crisis to what we saw there?
Yes, sir. 400 of our 1,200 systems in Louisiana are at risk because of poor maintenance and the absence of a revenue stream to maintain it. The EPA told me about 5 years ago to put clean water at your house costs about $36 without running the meter, the base price. Those places I'm telling you in the Black Belt where they have a problem with water, and in Jackson, Mississippi, people in Jackson will pay $20 for water. You can't run a system paying $20 when the base price to deliver it, where it's safe, it's maintained, and it's tested, is $36. It don't work. And then in Jackson, they created a thing, if you can't pay your bill, don't pay it. Well, here, you can't do that with cable. Well, guess what happened? About almost half the people weren't paying. So we got to watch when we say, well, just let the poor people don't pay. Guess what happened? So you either got to raise the price on everybody else, but remember that $36. Now, Baton Rouge, we're pretty close. I say we got a good, reliable water source, and the company does a good job running it. We've got some issues on some policy issues with them, but they do a good job. But that's not the case in Jennings, Louisiana, home of my good friend Stuart Bishop. His family live over there. They drink brown water. He was in charge of the Natural Resource Committee. He yelled at me to get it fixed. I said, well, you're the legislature. We'll bring you a bill. He didn't show up. His mom and them buy water from the local grocery store in 5-gallon jugs, 2-gallon jugs. And he's frustrated as heck about it. But we need action. This still is a good friend. Don't get me wrong. But it's a reality. We still got people drinking brown water. When we had the issue in St. Joe, the state leader of our safe drinking water was, as I said, a baby doctor, was in charge of water. Dr. Guidry has since retired. He was an honorable man, and he had a few engineers behind him. But what he said was, that water in St. Joe is brown. It won't hurt you to drink it, but I wouldn't drink it. Hell. Okay, folks, I appreciate y'all patience. God bless you.